Hey, how you folks doing? It's a beautiful day, still, I guess, in the earlier part of May. We're out here on Cape Cod about 2 weeks before this place becomes all but uninhabitable. Memorial Day to Labor Day is the tourist season down here, and what would normally be a 2-hour drive for me all of a sudden becomes a 4 to 5 to 6 hour if you're coming down on like a Saturday or a Friday afternoon drive. Looking out over the beautiful Atlantic Ocean there, got a nice container ship in the distance, giving a nice sense of scale for just how far out that is. And that is, in fact, all the way out there. None of this Casco Bay, Gulf of Maine type crap. That is looking out into the vast expanse of Atlantic Ocean out there. We're here because there's some interesting species that are going to be in bloom that most people miss because they're simply not here this time of year. We're going to go look at 2 species, hopefully 2, I think we can get both of them, in the subfamily Amygdaloideae. Alright, get comfortable with that because we're going to be talking about that subfamily a lot today. That is a subfamily of the rose family, Rosaceae, that contains, just a myriad of important crop plants, ecologic cornerstones of their respective communities. It's plums, apples, pears, cherries, almonds, nectarines, just a whole host, peaches too, I believe, a whole host of, pomaceous fruits, or I guess technically some of them would be drugs if it's just a single hard C in the center. But then again, whatever, doesn't really matter. We don't need to get into all that, the anatomy at this point in time. But, there's some other stuff that's interesting to look at here, because of course these dunes out in the Cape and the general, coast of the Northeast is a, rather fascinating and unique community. It's sandy, it's completely nutrient leached. Generally speaking, the Cape especially gets a little bit less rainfall than areas inland. That's even more exacerbated out on Nantucket. And you've got a windswept dune community here. It's all sand. We're basically on glacial till here. We're at the edge of a drumlin, Cape Cod, and in fact most of the Massachusetts south coast is all glacially influenced. But anyway, we're gonna take a break for a second there, and we're gonna take a look down here at one of my favorite things about coming to this specific beach, these lovely Krummholz pitch pines. This is Pinus Rigida. This is a tree in normal circumstances that can grow up to 50-60 feet. Not a massive, certainly not as big as the Pinus stropus, the white pine, but a tree in its own respects. Here they grow Krummholz, number 1 because of the nutrient stress, and then number 2 simply because it is so windswept. But as one looks out over the habitat here, you would see that growing tall would simply afford them no additional advantages other than some of the grass blades sticking out from between. Even being only maybe 3 feet tall, they are still the tallest thing here out on the dunes. So key context, usually you're used to seeing that up in like New England Alpine, where you see Krummholz, balsam firs and spruces. But even on the beaches here, where it's nice and warm and toasty, the Krummholz habit is still something that can happen to these things. All those little, I suppose I could probably zoom in and get a better shot. These little doodads hanging off the thing, those are the emerging male pollen cones. So this thing, if you were to brush up against it right now, do it off camera just to see. Oh, he's not quite ready yet, but give him another few weeks. He'll be spewing out pollen everywhere, and then the female cones develop elsewhere on the tree. They look cool though. They call that candlesticking. So that little tip up at the top of put narrow, just follow the cone, the little Medusa's head of cones up to the top there. That's where all of that new growth for this year is going to emerge. And who knows? Some of it will probably get clipped off in the winter winds. Some of it will get mowed down through other reasons. It's an interesting habit that this takes on. All right, we're going to look at a couple things before we jump into our main kind of target species for today. Okay, so actually just behind where we were just looking at, looking out over the water, on a little dune behind us here, we've got a plant that I've talked about, and I actually talked about extensively in some cases, but never got in flower. So this here is Arctostaphylos uva-ursi. This is our only manzanita we have on the east coast of the United States. And in fact, this is an extremely widespread and prolific species, with the caveat being needs the sand and it cannot be overtopped by any sort of vegetation. This thing is growing about 5 inches tall off the ground out of pure sand, and it is blanketing the dune. It does not tolerate being shaded out. It's got these tough evergreen leaves to it, and out in California, out in the deserts, you get quite a few species of these growing, but this one is by far, I believe, the most cold tolerant, one of the most wide-ranging. You might even get this in Europe. You definitely get it up in Canada and up in the Arctic. But if you were guessing that, hey, that looks a bit like a blueberry flower, you'd be correct, because indeed this is in the family Ericaceae, specifically in the subfamily Arbutoideae. Lovely pink little coloration to there. Have to go in and check to see if it's got the porocidal anthers that most of the other plants in the family Ericaceae have, which certainly makes sense, because I believe that actually no, well, they wouldn't be in the Ericoid subfamily, they'd be in the Arbutoid subfamily. You only get 2 species in that subfamily here in New England. You get Arctoas alpina, and then you get this one. And I think Arctoas alpina is even sometimes placed in Arctostaphylos. But now we're talking about alpine botany, not sand dune botany. But these are real fascinating. The berries are deceptively large on them when they do mature, and though not really the favorite thing of anything to eat, they are, quite persistent on the thing over the winter, and you'll see like turkeys picking at them. Bearberry is the common name. Has a few different indigenous names like knick, but again, this is a species that occurs, all over the world. So to say that it has one, indigenous name would be a little bit disrespectful to a different, group of indigenous people that have a different name for it. It's something that I found kind of confusing that people do. You'll have like people who smudge with sage talk about it being, disrespectful to burn sage, but are completely ignorant to the fact that genus Salvia, sage, there's sage all over the northern hemisphere. I think even maybe some in the southern hemisphere, hundreds of species of salvia, and many of them have been used as incense by, many blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, but it's specifically white sage. And it's like, okay, well, do you have any idea how many? I actually don't know the specific species they're talking about. 1.5 million species of sage out west. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here. I just call it bearberry because Arctostaphylos literally means bearberry. So that name just makes sense to me. Or it was like uva-ursi means bearberry, but Arctostaphylos, that's still, Arctos means bear still, so I'll have to, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think we've actually still got, here, I'll pick one of these berries off for you. It's going to drop off soon anyway. You can see kind of looks like a cranberry, which would, again, make sense because they're all Ericaceae. Anyway, we'll put that guy there. Maybe something will pick it up and eat it, or it'll drop off and make it grow into a new mat of plants. But these reproduce not only by fruit, but they've also got this lovely trailing habit. These things, I'll zoom up the dune there. Yeah, these things really fill in nicely, just blanketing the sand dune, holding it together. Unlike your stupid Rosa rugosa, which is what everybody gets all excited about out here, you get all these cool, native flowering plants that most people don't even notice, because to some people this probably just looks, oh, it's just ground cover. It's just ground cover, when in fact it is quite literally one of the quite literally one of the dominant and most important plants here on the beach dunes. Anyway, that's enough about Arctostaphylos uva-ursi. Beautiful white and pink flowers on the thing. Happy to finally see it in bloom. I'm going to take a little walk around here, and we're going to see what else there is to see. I keep seeing these little cardamines or arabis. I'm not sure what they're. Some type of cress, some type of tiny little mustard growing out of the sand, and part of me wants to believe that there's something, one of the numerous non-native little cresses, but part of me is holding out hope that it's one of the cool native cardamines, or maybe an Arabis or Arabidopsis. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. We'll see if we can get back to it, but they do seem to be kind of dominating in the parking lot, which leads me to believe that they might be non-native, so we won't spend much more time there. It's actually just incredible trying to explain this type of habitat to people who have never really been out here. You don't know any better. You think you're maybe in a desert or something. It's fascinating. Gotta love the Cape. Huh. Well, if I'm not mistaken, that's Lethyus Chaponica. That's a beach pea. Obviously not in bloom, but still a staple of temperate coastlines near globally. I think it's around in the ocean. So it has the epithet Japonicus, but it's actually, you know, native to a pretty wide swath of you know, the world. Oh, it actually, look at that. Did the thing already? Oh no, those. I thought that those folded up leaves were pea pods that had already gone to flower and fruit. No, this will be a, you know, you come back in June, I believe is when these will be blooming. Really fascinating plant. Really fascinating plant. Cosmopolitan distribution, but it only grows along beaches, and I think it's been introduced into some fresh water, like the Great Lakes, some freshwater hydrology systems. Okay, here you go. Nice grove of them. Took me longer than I thought to find them, but they kind of they like it more in these little hummocks in between the peaks of the dunes, which lines up with where I saw them not in bloom further down the Cape out in the province lands earlier this year. This is Prunus Maritima. So Prunus is a pretty cool genus. It's plums, it's cherries, it's almonds, it's whatever you want it to be. Just kidding. It's a, you know, typically, you know, hard one-seeded fruits are generally what these make. And indeed, this one would be considered a plum. So actually, surprisingly decent-sized fruits on the thing when it does go to bloom. I'll have to check. I can't remember what the deal is, if they're edible and they're not that good, or if they are good to eat. I don't really remember. So Prunus Maritima, to me, is the quintessential, you know, Cape Cod plant. I don't recall. I can pull up and find out rather easily right now where exactly these are native to, because I'm not sure. Are they endemic to the U.S.? They must get into the Maritimes. Let's see here. Let us look. Oh, no, okay. Indeed, endemic to the U.S. Plain made to the east coast of the United States from Maine south to Maryland, although sometimes extending to New Brunswick. Okay, so it's not known from collections there, but it might have spread there. It is actually, to its credit, a very popular ornamental species, especially around these parts, and especially now, like these days. It's becoming a very popular ornamental plant to grow, because even though it is a specialist of the dunes and of the coastal climates, coastal habitats, as you can see, it's one of the few things attaining any height here, and it still needs, you know, fast draining soil and full sun. So it does need that, but unlike, you know, some of the Arctostaphylos and the pitch pines and some of the other plants here, in fact, I'll just kind of rotate this. You get a nice Quercus ilicifolia there coming into bloom, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm in a thicket here. I'm actually covered in ticks right now, and it's not that pleasant where I'm standing. We'll talk about this guy and one of the other really cool Fagales, oak adjacent things. We'll talk about those in a second. But we're focusing on Prunus Maritima right now. So the whole thing, you know, much like even the weediest prunus species, like Prunus Maritima, lights up with magnificent flowers this time of year. So, amygdaloidy, white, woody roses, generally white. There's some exceptions to that. Yada, yada, yada. So this is that same genus as in your somewhat weedy tree, like a black cherry, Prunus Maritima, although they're really good trees to have around if you're in the Northeast. Somewhat invasive outside their native range, I understand. But this, no, those flowers, this is the same, like people, the legendary trees, like the Japanese cherry blossom, whose name currently escapes me, the scientific name, but it's a prunus. So, beautiful blossoms on this thing, has this really cool can be, you know, readily grown and propagated. It's an ecological powerhouse. Like a lot of creatures are depending on the nectar from these things. A lot of creatures are depending on the fruits they put out, and much like everything else that actually evolved in these coastal sand plains, these coastal sand dunes, it is able to tolerate just the worst soil, the worst substrate imaginable, and it's holding the entire thing together. About 100 feet in front of me, there's a 50 to 60 foot drop off that goes straight down to the ocean. And without plants like these occupying that habitat, you know, this whole thing just comes apart. So let me reconfigure the camera. We'll get in here and we'll go look at some of those. We'll look at the flowers in detail here. Okay, now we're zoomed in a little bit more on the flowers here. So you can see 5 petals, not one of these freakish, you know, what do you call it? Where they do with the roses, the double flowering, like how most rose cultivars are double flowered. So these are in the rose family. So these are, you know, pretty typical rose flowers. There's a little hypanthium in there, which I'm not sure if you can make out, which is basically like a tube. So at the center of the petals there's a tube. Down in there is where the nectaries would be. So the ovary is going to mature from. I believe that rose fruits almost universally inferior ovaried. I'm trying to look at some of the developing fruits here. That does seem to be the case because you get the stem and you get the bud on it. All right, that's a general good rule of thumb. You can see, like, if you turn an apple, the stem is where the actual, you know, peduncle attached to the tree. The little butthole that apples have, that's actually the residual calyx. So that's where the you know, the reproductive bits withered and fell off after the thing was pollinated. So you get the idea. I'll have to find a picture of what the fruits look like on here. These things bloom prolifically. I see maturing fruits and flowers and bud. Right now it's just about peak for them. Any real fragrance on these? Let me see if I can get close enough to see if I can pick up a fragrance. If there is, it's mild. I'm not really getting much there. So that's Prunus Maritima. That is the, oh god, I'm all cut up from whatever I was kneeling in yesterday. I thought yesterday was bad. Today is brushy and just as ticky. You know, I don't know. The flower morphology for roses, I don't like them because of their, you know, specific niche morphology. I like them because when they bloom, the aggregate, the sum of their parts typically makes something more spectacular and more beautiful than they are on their own. So, you know, all their flowers kind of look similar. If you've seen one prunus flower, you've seen the vast majority of them, if you catch my drift. The Amelanchier and Tuccadensis that we're hopefully going to go see later, a little bit different of a story. There's some fascinating stuff going on with there. I just hope that, however, this shot, I can't see anything as far as, like, you know, what the zoom looks like, so you have to bear with me. It's too sunny. Oh, I guess that's okay. In any case, hopefully you got at least 1 or 2 of those in focus there. But just to, you know, bring it up, zoom back up just to give you the context. There you go. There was the bush we were looking at, and there's a whole grove of them here. I can't call it endemic to the northeast U.S. because I guess allegedly there's a big argument that at one point these were blooming in Nantucket. Who knows? I went on a whole rant in the last video about how plants aren't sessile. You know, borders are arbitrary. The main habitat of these is going to be southern, like mid-Maine, like south of Arcadia, down through like New Jersey, and then on into Maryland. I think is as far south as they go. Mostly on the coast, but they get planted ornamentally, so you're going to have some escapes inland, presumably. Anyway, that's it for Prunus Maritima. Go see if we can find an easily accessible Quercus ilicifolia. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a few other things. We'll go see if we can see that Amelanchier and Tuccadensis. You get a whole bunch of this guy as well, not unique to the habitat, but taking advantage of it. Lathyrus canadensis, the blue toadflax. That's, oh god, is it Scrophulariaceae? I think it's a scroph. Somewhat related to, oh god, what do they call them? Yes, toadflax. What's the real showy one? Snapdragons. So one of those guys, you know, not that snapdragons are native to the US, but this guy is wide-ranging, ruderal plant. As you can see, you know, coming up out of sidewalks and here on the Cape. I always like seeing him. He's got really attractive flowers. So I wasn't kidding when I mentioned, you know, easily a 50, 60, if not more foot drop. In fact, I looked up the elevation from here. I think it was closer to 80 feet. Needless to say, you would not want to be going down that. There's the plants on the precipice. And there's the hard-packed sandy beach down below. Up here, however, I have another fascinating plant here. This is Morella pensylvanica. This is Bayberry right here. Northern Bayberry, whatever the hell it is. Put the camera down. There we go. Got the thing actually in focus for you. So this is Morella pensylvanica. This is Bayberry. And those little nubby things you see coming off the axis there, those are actually the emerging flowers. I think those are actually the female flowers. Not sure where the males come off. So this is in the order. Oh, I see where the male flowers are. I'll show you 1 second. So these are in the order Vagales, the family Myricaceae. We have you know, only, I mean, Myricaceae is a small family. We've got 3 native species, all of which are, you know, somewhat common plants, all of which have generally very cool ecologies and a fascinating actual anatomy to them. So Myricaceae, that's your Comptonia peregrina, that's your Myricaceae, and that's your Morella pensylvanica. Morella pensylvanica, you'll see it in coastal settings. You'll also see it like up on dry, like dry microsites. You'll see it anywhere with thin sandy soil, like here. You know, all of the above. Comptonia peregrina, much the same, not quite as adapted to the sand and the salt, even the salt, as this one is, but still a rudal plant, a mainstay of power line easements in the northeast. And then Myricaceae is a bog plant, which I don't think I've actually ever covered. Has a more northern affinity and also is a circumboreal plant. It's not unique to the northeast like Comptonia and Morella pensylvanica are. So those are the female flowers. Now these will turn into those little waxy bayberries that are, you know, they use them to make candles and shit. But I've just found out, just from looking at the thing, where the actual pollen flowers are. So you gotta remember, these are in the family of oaks. There you go, there's a male flower right there. So they're gonna make what are called catkins. We're gonna go see this on Quercus ilicifolia too in a second here. They make catkins. That is a common characteristic. Put this down. Sorry, I'm trying not to wiggle. I'm really trying not to wiggle the camera. Someone was telling me to get a fucking gimbal. Buddy, I'm like on the side of dunes. I'm doing 9-mile fucking hikes. I already have too much gear on me as it is. This is, trust me, this is better than the phone because it's actually a macro. And the phone takes decent video, but it doesn't show detail up close in the same way that this can. And if you don't notice a difference, well, then I'm just a silly asshole. Anyway, I'm not dragging a gimbal on, you know, on these hikes that I do. I'm hanging off cliffs half the time, wading through swamps. You know what I mean? There's a reason why not more. Trust me, there's a lot of people that I know that are a lot more knowledgeable about this stuff. They can't believe the hassle I go through to shoot some of these videos. Okay, I'm sorry that the camera shakes. I just figured out how to use the stabilize feature in DaVinci because I had to switch. Whatever. I'm going on a whole rant here. You don't care. So those are the male flowers at the base. Female flowers as it progresses up the plant, which makes sense. That is just called being monoecious, having male and female flowers, you know, on different parts of the same plant. Dioecious is bisexual is you know, what that proves is male and female. You get distinct style, ovary, and stamens all in the same plant. Pistil and stamens all in the same flower. That's bisexual. So we're gonna go look at, I think most of Fabaceae does that. They have male and female sometimes. So that is Morella pensylvanica. We're gonna see. We're gonna go see if we can get a shot of an oak, and I think that might be the only other thing I have to show you here. Actually, I'm going to cut away for a second, and we're going to talk about these two plants very briefly. Okay, right here, real quick. Because neither of them are in bloom, but they're interesting, and they're also fundamental components of this ecosystem. You've got Hudsonia tomentosa here. So this is not in bloom. Golden beach heather. Hudsonia is another one of those really cool genera that you know, you're going to want to. Oh god, why can't I speak right now? You're going to want to see this in June. Like, these light up beautiful gold. So in the same way, an almost more spectacular show than Prunus Maritima, because these are also just absolutely matting the ground, just like Arctostaphylos does, really holding things together. I did a whole video on basically this family's representation in New England. You get 2 species. You get this one, tomentosa, and then you get a much smaller one, like up in, what is it? Oh god. The state forest up there, not on the Cape, up in Plymouth. I can't remember now. Why can't I ever remember anything? Doesn't matter at this juncture, but you know, the pitch pine forest up there. Miles Standish State Forest. Up in Miles Standish State Forest, you go like on the trails, you can see Hudsonia ericoides. And I think there's even a third species, but we don't get it up here. That one's down in the Carolinas. But I think there's only 3 species in the genera, and I think they're all relegated to the U.S. I could be wrong on that. It's been a minute since been a couple years since I've talked about this one, but I just wanted to show it to you. And then another one, though not in bloom, very important plant here. This is the remnants of last year's Solidago sempervirens. See, there's the seed head from last year, and then there's the emerging new leaves. Borderline succulent. This thing will grow here on the dunes, it'll grow in salt marshes, and it'll grow on the side of highways. It can tolerate an incredible amount of salt and an incredible amount of abuse. There's a couple more right there up on the Cress. Solidago sempervirens, one of my favorites, one of my absolute favorites species of Solidago. I'll make this the last thing for this stop. This is Quercus ilicifolia, okay? This is the so-called bear oak. Surprisingly, I was surprised to find out anyway, surprisingly limited distribution on this thing. Mostly just in the northeast, like it's all over the Middlesex Fells, likes the dunes, likes balds, likes barren habitats, and just like Morella pensylvanica, it also does catkins. So these would be the male flowers dangling down below, supplying the pollen, and then extremely reduced up here on the internodes of the leaves. Let me just readjust that for a second. Unless I am sorry, it's a little difficult. Unless I am critically mistaken, those are the female flowers right there that will develop into acorns. Could be wrong on that. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure that that's where the acorns begin to develop, unless there's some sort of leaf bud. But when you see the actual, they are like clasped right to the side of the branches. They're not really they're not hanging off like that. We'll figure it out. This guy's already kind of leafing out. Hopefully that's coming through. Again, I can't see what the camera sees right now, so I'm putting a bit of blind faith in the thing. Ooh, there's a barometer earth star underneath me. It's not reading it, so okay, yeah, I think it's good for here. We're gonna go because I'm sure there's Amelanchier tuckanensis is not. You can go around the Cape and hit some beach plum, hit most of these plants that we're seeing. They're abundant, but they're only, they're locally abundant. Amelanchier tuckanensis is one that we're going to have to go do a little bit of searching for, just to make sure that we can actually, find the thing. I've got a couple of pins in mind, and then there's a couple other sites that I'm going to stop at that I may or may not get on film, because I'm not really sure what's there. But Amelanchier tuckanensis is one that I would love to go show you right now. So let's go do that. Yeah, see, it's actually nice. They've got the beach plum here in the parking lot. Like I said, looks great in a horticultural setting too. Coming up with a slightly healthier looking bare oak, so those might just be shrubby red oaks, which can certainly also occur. Prunus Maritima. Put it in your yard, why don't you? Excuse me, yeah, pardon the boards of Canada. You like boards of Canada? We're looking for an Nantucket shad brush. Do you know where it is? That's okay. Thank you for your time. Man, even when it's not that busy, Route 6 fucking sucks. But that building across the street from the Cumbies here is always graffitied up real nice. They change it every year, I think. Last year it had like some anime girl on it. This year you got a whale, you got a frog, seahorse, hammerhead shark, an eagle, hermit crab, and I can't tell what's at the end there. I always like driving by that one. Okay, here you go. We're coming up right next to some nice oily poison ivy, which I really want to make sure I'm grabbing the right plant here. There we go. We've got a beautiful chokeberry, Aronia melanocarpa. Also in the migdaloideae, a little bit more diverged from the Amelanchiers and Prunuses. These guys like it. I see them all the time. Like, again, Miles Standish, I thought these needed it wet, but I guess they'll come up in the sand too. Real beautiful flowers on them. These are not infrequently grown as ornamentals. There's a hybrid of them and a couple of cultivars that are popular ornamentals, I believe. But Aronia. Not too many species. I think it's just 2 species and then the hybrid between the 2. Again, Melanocarpa, this is the black chokeberry. So take a couple pictures of this, wrap it up with one more cool amygdaloid, one that's not so speciosa, not so cryptic. These are actually pretty easy to tell the difference between the 2. Also, I don't believe their populations overlap. But put the little comment down below if that's wrong. I think it's a widespread species, and then there's like one that's like kind of restricted. Not sure, I forget. I knew that at one point, but we'll cut it off there. Oh, another thing I should probably have pointed out at some point is most of these amygdaloids, unlike a lot of members of the rose family, including Rosa rugosa, which is a non-native obnoxious species down there, compound leaves are very common on roses, especially that genus Rosa. Most of the amygdaloids, with a couple of exceptions, maybe like sorbus being one, a lot of them actually have simple leaves. I know, trust me, I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. I think all the prunuses, all the amelanchiers, the aronias, Spirea too, from what I think, they all have the simple leaves, of course, with the dentate margins, because roses aren't giving up their dentate margins, but sometimes they don't necessarily do compound leaves. In any case, that is quite literally all I have for you today. The poison ivy is tantalizingly close to my finger there, so we're gonna call it there. I had 2 other spots I would have loved to get to, but you know what? Had a long day yesterday and a long day today. So I think we're gonna leave that at that. Aronia melanocarpa, amygdaloideae, some cool native beach plants in bloom, some cool poison ivy, and then one last shot. This lovely, wetland and scrubby, savanna-like pitch pine forest habitat. Take it easy, folks. I hope you got something, at least something interesting out of that. Sorry, just 2 more quick things because this is cool. But first, I might have been mistaken about the aronia. That could have been red chokeberry. I'd have to see. I guess you have to see the foliage to know the difference. The red one is much more locally rare than the black one. So I'm gonna bank on Aronia melanocarpa. The hybrid is Aronia. It's purple, red chokeberry, black chokeberry, purple chokeberry. I'm gonna, whatever. It's an Aronia. It's pretty hard to mistake with those anthracyanic anthers, how they were pink like that. But I'm gonna err on the side of still Aronia melanocarpa. Floribund is another one, and then I already forget what the third one is. It's also not a hybrid. It is a hybrid derived species. So whatever. Anyway, I pulled over real quick because I wanted to show you the beautiful flowers. Beautiful and somewhat showy flowers on Sassafras albidium. I believe these are dioecious plants like their relatives Linaria benzoin. So we got a boy here. See the little anthers in there? Actually, wait a minute. Are you, looks like you have a stigma and anthers there. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look up what sassafras is. I know Linaria, which is the other member of Lauraceae, laurel family we get here in New England, is dioecious, but I gotta double check on sassafras. And then also a lovely Galasaceae, black huckleberry, Galasaceae bacata, yet another Ericaceous plant with the urceate corollas, just like the Arctostaphylos, huh? Exactly like Arctostaphylos. And then all this thicket through here is just more huckleberry, and that is mostly Ilex glabra, a nice native holly. I think inkberry is the one that goes by. I can never, inkberry, gallberry, I can never get the common names for the hollies straight, because they all kind of share various similar common names. Oh, can we get some maybe some vaccidium action here? Are any of the blueberries in bloom? We'd really be might as well have made it an episode about Ericaceae at that point. But here's that holly. This one I know is an evergreen one. This one's a real common one, especially in southern New England. People get this planted outside like their homes and businesses. You see this planted in office parks. I used to assume it was some obnoxious random thing, but I mean, hey, it's a native plant. Ilex species support a ton of cool stuff too. So hey, more power to them. They got this planted right outside the office I work in. I forget when these bloom. Ilex verticillata, which is more of a mesic species I know, is blooming right now. This one, I don't know when it blooms. You also have Ilex opaca, just barely clinging on to the northernmost extent of its range around these parts too. Ilex is a great genus. I've seen quite a few of them. There's a few really rare ones that I haven't seen yet. Opaca, ironically, is a rare one, but it's an aggressive enough species that where it occurs, you're generally seeing a decent amount of it. In any case, I really got to cut it off here. Hopefully this is a nice long one that people like. As you can hear, I'm by the side of the road, and I'm about ready to go home here. So why don't you all have a nice day.